Okay, so today is a very memorable moment, and this is a moment which I've been waiting for last few years. And we have a session with a person who realized the importance of remaining updated in critical care, and not only he remained himself updated, but he also developed a platform which is now so much helpful to the critical care community. And I'm sure those who are working in critical care, those who are practicing critical care, they must have come across this platform, and for some this is a go-to resource to remain updated on critical care. And I'm talking about critical care reviews, and today with us is the founder of and the visionary behind the criticalcarereviews.com, Professor Rob Mac Sweeney. And I'm so delighted that he will be sparing some next 30-40 minutes with us and will enlighten us with his wisdom and years of experience that how to remain updated in critical care. With that, we welcome Dr. Rob Mac Sweeney. And Dr. Sir, we are very much thankful to you, not only from my side, but from the whole ICU channel and the ESBICM community, that you spared time for us for this. And before I start, I would like to request you to share a little bit about you, your background, your brief info, because if I start, it will be a very long list which I had to mention. So, little bit about you for our audience. Welcome.
Thanks, Anchor. It's lovely to join you. Thank you very much for the invitation to join you for a conversation. I'm Rob Mac Sweeney. I'm an intensivist in Belfast in the Royal Victoria Hospital. I'm an adult intensivist. I also have an affiliation with Queen's University Belfast. I'm an honorary professor of practice there. I qualified, I suppose, a quarter of a century ago at this stage. Makes me sound old. So I've been a consultant in intensive care medicine for the last 13, 14 years, and started training over 20 years ago, I suppose. So I've seen quite a few changes in critical care over that time, and especially in terms of trials and how we do our trials and how we interpret our trials nowadays, and how the evidence landscape has changed over the last 25 years. So that's been my interest, has been evidence, staying up to date, and trying my best to share evidence with other people as well.
Thank you. I was curious regarding this point, Dr. Rob, that what was the when you must be in your early stages of critical care career. So, what was the turning point, or what was a critical moment where you decided that this is something to remain updated in critical care is very, very important, and you start exploring the things? How this struck you? What was the moment behind that?
So there was no one specific moment. I was always interested in the science behind this specialty, in particular what drove decision making. I was always struck when I was training how one clinician would reach one decision and another clinician would reach another decision in the same area, and I maybe would reach another decision. And it was this inconsistency that I found intriguing. And it brought me back to the evidence. What would the evidence suggest the correct thing to do was? And the evidence obviously isn't always clear, and it needs to be interpreted carefully. But it was that inconsistency across different people which I found very, very interesting. And that brought me back to the literature, and that's probably where a lot of this started from, my interest in staying up to date in critical care, trying to make the best and most up-to-date decisions that I could.
Okay. I think the Critical Care Reviews was founded in 2009 somewhere, and I am sure that before that also you must be reviewing different literatures. So at that time when you you thought that remaining updated with with the literature is so important. So the internet was not very much friendly or not very much available, or the literature digital platform was not so much available. So how did you manage to remain updated during those days with the latest literature? What were the struggles at that point of time, which you found, and then you made that decision slowly into the critical care reviews? We'll discuss later. But how do you remain updated those 16, 18 years back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I started in 2008. The first iteration of Critical Care Reviews was slightly different. It was called Critical Care Knowledge. I started with a website. I knew nothing about websites. So I put together a very basic website. It grew quite quickly. I pretty quickly got up to the guts of 1,000 web pages, and it was kind of a drag and drop platform, which meant that I couldn't then change anything consistently across all 1,000 pages. So after about a year or so, I thought again and developed redesigned the website, used a different platform, and used a content management system rather than a drop and drag website system, and started Critical Care Reviews. So the emphasis on knowledge has always been there, on information, on knowledge. I had a huge collection of PDFs of the big trials and of editorials on the trials and correspondence and narrative reviews. I had this enormous collection. But obviously, given there were PDFs that are copyrighted, I couldn't put these on my website. But what I could do instead was I could share links to the trials. So that's where the website initially evolved around, was me structuring and sharing links to big trials. And thankfully, at the time, the big trials they're usually on New England and JAMA. Some are in the Lancet, but New England and JAMA largely dominate the critical care space. And the trials are open access. So providing a link, someone goes there and there's the paper. So it kind of grew from that, a desire to share a structured catalog of papers that I already had with the rest of the world. I've gone to the trouble of doing this. Someone else shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel.
So that's what my point. When did you feel that you always were interested that in decision making, that remaining updated in the what is the evidence, say latest evidence, it's important. But like you told that somebody doesn't have to do all these things again and again. So what was the point which you felt that I need to share with the world and I need to develop this platform? So you started with critical care knowledge, but what was the point where you thought that no, I am reading all this, but I should do it. I should bring it on the online platform where everybody can review, see and read. What made you think that?
I think it was a gradual process. Again, it comes back to the first point I made, where I could see inconsistency between different approaches. That's not to say one was right and one was wrong, but they were different. And if we're all looking at the same patient and we have the same evidence base, how do we get to different conclusions? And I tried to stay up to date, and it was a means of just sharing the latest evidence so everybody would be at the same point in time and aware of the most recent literature. So that's where it came from. So there was no, again, single
point. Okay. So there was a technical glitch, I think, somewhere the connectivity issue. So we have switched it to some other platform for recording. And so we continue from where. So Dr. Rob, you were telling that there was no single point, but you felt the need that everybody has to make a consensus while treating a patient. They can be different. They are not no right and wrong, but there are different opinions. So we should follow what the latest evidence and review the latest evidence. So after you have done that, so my next question is that, do you feel that when you start remaining updated on the critical care updates and you have this discussion on your rounds or with your colleagues, have you felt the change in your practice over the last 16 years by this practice of remaining updated with the evidence?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly on our ward rounds, we're always trying to quote the correct evidence. So when we have a clinical decision to make, we ask, well, what's the evidence? What applies? What best applies to this individual? That's in front of us. And I think my practice has certainly changed over the period of time that I've been qualified, and it's very much, I try and very much be evidence-based. Now, obviously, there's not always the evidence, and a lot of the time the evidence isn't there to support practice one way or another, which is more difficult. But where there is evidence, then yeah, we do try and apply it. I certainly try and apply it.
And so with this, do you feel more comfortable on the intensive care when you have the science behind it, what the science is backing up, and you know that you have been reading and updating, remaining updated on this evidence. So does this make you more comfortable? I'm asking this particular question related to the trainees or those who are entering into the critical care. So if they have habit of reading and reviewing the evidence, will that make them more comfortable on the practice which you are doing, or on the rounds, or on the intensive care department? Does it makes them more comfortable?
It certainly makes them more knowledgeable. I mean, the famous saying, "A little knowledge is a dangerous thing,"
Yeah.
and lots of research ends in the same point. More research is needed. But yes, in answering your question, I think you're a better clinician for being up to date and for knowing the available evidence, and people should get confidence from that, from knowing they're up to date. If you don't know what the evidence is, then you either fall into one of two categories. You either know you don't know the evidence, or you don't know that you don't know the evidence, neither of which is a great position to be in.
Okay. So this point we'll discuss later, that compared to textbooks, how much is it important to review the articles. But before that, I'll finish my question on critical care reviews. That when you started critical care knowledge, and then you started turned into critical care reviews, and as far as I knew, that it remained free for most of the years, around 8-9 years it remained free of cost, and even today it's very nominal. So what were the struggles which you are facing in the platform initially to make it remaining it sustainable, and then you started to having a little bit about very nominal fee? So this was a conscious decision, or it was a need which was required?
No, I mean, my preference would have been to keep it entirely free, but there were a lot of so-called FOMED developments around 2010 onwards, and as they all grew, the cost of maintaining them grew, not just financially, but certainly in terms of time. The time cost of doing a lot of these is enormous, and if you're spending a lot of time working on these free initiatives, then there's an opportunity cost to you otherwise personally. So there's the opportunity cost. That was okay. That didn't bother me hugely. But as the platform grew, the costs grew, and they grew and they grew and they grew. I mean, we started with a website, and then we added a newsletter, and then we added a podcast, and we added a meeting, and we added a book. And all of that takes a lot of time, but not just time, it takes money as well. I mean, the annual meeting that we run, we live stream it for free. We're one of the very, very few major meetings to live stream for free, possibly one of the only ones to live stream the entire 3-day conference for free. So our ethos has always been to share science for the benefit of all. But a point comes where if you're not charging anything, the business model of giving everything away for free, and I get asked this repeatedly, you know, it's a disastrous business model. We're not a business per se, but we are. We have income and we have expenses, lots of expenses. We have to pay for that. So we eventually reached the point where we had to start charging for things. And there's lots of downsides to not having money. You can grow until your available time is completely consumed, and then you can't grow anymore. You can't stop. So any plans you have to do more things are just entirely stopped. You can't do anything more. So again, other going back to the original foam projects from 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, some of them have gone behind paywalls. Lots of them have folded. We're still going, doing our best to try and keep things as free as possible, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, I can understand this because we have been doing this ESBICM for the last from 2018 to 2025, almost free. And this year we are planning to charge a nominal for our some premium lectures like that, because obviously sustainability is the thing. So now we stand around 2009 to 2026, somewhere around 17-18 years later. So it grew from a website which was providing the articles, reviews, and now it has grown to a big platform. So for the viewers who are listening, can you enumerate what are the services or things are available on criticalcarereviews.com as of now when we are discussing in Feb 2026?
Yeah, there's where do you start? There's lots of things. I suppose the highest profile is probably our meeting. We have what was an annual meeting, which is now grown to 2 meetings a year. The meeting hosts major trial results, which again ties in with our interest in trials. So we've been very lucky. We are able to host some of the biggest trial results of the year, usually with a synchronized simultaneous publication in one of the major journals, which, as I say, is largely New England and JAMA. So that we have a 3-day meeting in June every year, which is in Titanic Belfast. And for the last 2 years, we've also had a 2-day meeting in Melbourne. So we've been running 5 days of meetings, which we live stream for free across the world, the whole thing. And that would have been with the guts of 20 trials. So 20 major trial results, we would live stream the results of. We'd have 30 minutes for a trial result in comparison with the other meetings that host trials, which usually give 10 or 15 minutes. We'd have 30 minutes for the trial result alone, an independent editorial for 15 minutes, reply to the editorial, audience questions, and a panel discussion. So each trial got 90 minutes. So very, very different to how the other meetings do it. And a much better way of disseminating science, I think. And so people who watch the meeting from around the world, at the end of each 90-minute session, they should have a really good feel for the pros and cons, the strengths and limitations of those trial results and how they can adapt it to their own practice and decision making. So that's one. We've got the meeting, and the meeting's been running since 2013, I think it was. So that's, I mean, to give you an idea of growth, that went from an evening meeting, a 3-hour meeting, to a 1-day meeting, to a 2-day meeting, to a 3-day meeting, to 2 meetings on the other side of the world in the space of about 10 years. So that's constant growth, which is challenging because the finances never really kept up with the growth. So we're always under pressure to try and do all of this. So that was the meeting. We try and produce a book, which is a bit ad hoc. The time to produce a book is enormously challenging. So we've written 3 or 4 books. So at the end of the year, we try and summarize and critique the big trials of that year and have it out by the end of the year. So really, really difficult to do that. We think we've managed it 4 times. We've had another a couple of attempts where we just haven't been able to do it. Not that we haven't spent huge amounts of time on doing it, but we haven't got it over the line. So we've got a book, we've got that. During the pandemic, when all the meetings shut down, we changed to a virtual meeting. And we ran our annual meeting, which at the time was in January, which in the Northern Hemisphere is a disastrous time to run a meeting during a pandemic peak viral season. So we moved to June after that, but our meeting at that time was in January. So we ran our annual meeting on time in January. We did it all virtually. And during the pandemic, because all the other meetings had stopped, there were nowhere to present all these really important pandemic trials that were coming out. So we started to do ad hoc live streams, and we did about a dozen, again, mostly with simultaneous New England or JAMA publications. So it was a really useful service for the community around the world. As these new interventions were coming out, we were able to share them immediately. Again, in a nuanced fashion with expert opinion. So we have the live streams. They're there on the website. There is an enormous collection of narrative reviews, all broken down. You want a narrative review on subarachnoid hemorrhage, aneurysmal subarachnoid hemorrhage, it's there. Tens of papers, all open access. If you want a narrative review on traumatic spinal cord injury, on you name the condition, they're all there. There's hundreds of web pages. So again, part of the reason, a bit like bringing all the trials together, was it reflected the database I had, or the catalog of PDFs that I had on my own laptop 20 years ago. So they're all there, but these are all open access. So you don't have to run the gauntlet of doing a Google search and trying to find something, or doing a PubMed search and having 7,000 replies, and you then have to go through them one at a time to find what's actually good, what's accessible. So they're all there now. in the last couple of years, AI is going to challenge that. Will we be reading narrative reviews, or will we just ask whichever chatbot you use to give you a narrative review? That's a slightly different question. But at the moment, the narrative reviews are there. The guidelines are there. Up-to-date guidelines are all there, all catalogued. The major trials are there. They're catalogued. The latest project I'm just finishing off is summaries and critiques of the big trials. So if someone were to start critical care today, what trials should they know? So we've been working on this for several months. So that's pretty much good to go in the next day or two, hopefully. So proper critique and summary of the big trials, which will be useful to people starting off and those who want to just refresh their practice. I mean, there's what else is there? We've got a journal watch feature, which is very comprehensive. I think it's probably by distance the most comprehensive critical care literature update that there is. So every single day we scan the literature. Every single day we add trials to the website, not just trials, but editorials, commentaries, everything that's open access, plus then the trials. The trials may be paywalled, but that's what forms the basis of our evidence. So you have to know the trials. Whether you read this paywalled narrative review or that open access narrative review on the same topic is less important, but you need to be aware of the primary literature. So that's there, and all that then goes in a newsletter at the end of the week and gets sent to our subscribers. The newsletter is the only thing that we've started to charge for. And that was, we had to start doing that to keep our head above water. We didn't want to, but we had to. So 11 years we managed to do a free newsletter. So the newsletter has been running for, I can't even remember how many years now. I think we're due to send newsletter 740 this weekend, which would be 740 consecutive weeks. So you can work that out as to how many years that is. Every single weekend, that sometimes we're late and it might go out the next day, but for 740 weeks, every day, for 365 days of the year, we update. Now, occasionally the website mightn't be updated that day, but we've gathered the information in the background and just haven't had time to actually upload it. But pretty much every day for however many years that is, 15, 16, 17 years, we've updated daily. So there's nothing else like it. The newsletter is free for those in low middle income countries. We charge those in upper middle and high income countries. So it's a very small amount, as you say, Anchor. It's pretty much a nominal fee, but allows us to do what we do and hopefully try and grow more. So if any of your listeners are able to pay, that's great. I know India is a country with wealth disparity, as much of the world sadly is going that way. So those who aren't able to pay, by all means, get in touch with us and we'll send you a complimentary subscription. Those who are able to pay, if it's of interest to you and you're able to, then please support our work, and it helps us share science for everyone's benefit. So that's the newsletter, the journal watch. Put the website up here. There's that much. It's hard to keep up even with what I do, and podcasts, just like you do. We do podcasts ad hoc. I've one lined up that I have to get out on a trauma to shock 2, which I did with Jan Backer a while ago. So I'm behind getting that out. So we have ad hoc podcasts again. It comes back to the same problem of time. With all these resources, how do you maintain them all, especially when your time is limited? And the last thing, which I'd love to do more of, is we have a blog, which is where I try and explore different themes and topics. But a blog post takes a lot of time, really takes a lot of time to try and do. So that hopefully gives your listeners a feel for what Critical Care Reviews does. Really, we're all about sharing science to the benefit of all. We do it in a number of different ways. It's multimodal. But the big thing is trying to just keep people up to date in an informed manner.
I have been a subscriber of your newsletter for the last 3-4 years, I think, and it's been very, very helpful. And within a few weeks, I became a huge fan of you and your work which you were doing. So that made me.
Thank you.
And one more thing I think we forgot is the paper of the day, which comes, journal of the day. Is something which comes and keep you motivated that something has new come. So the next question, which genuinely, which our audience was be wondering, that you started as a single man army sort of thing, and still you are single man, or you have some people who are helping you have now a team of people which you have hired to do all these things.
So it's largely me still. My wife now runs the meetings, runs the Belfast meeting. We have friends in Melbourne who are able to run the local logistics in Melbourne. They do a brilliant job with that. But my wife runs the local meeting. The meeting had gotten to the point that, a 3-day international meeting, we either needed to outsource it to an event company or pay the money and do it ourselves. So my wife has been watching me toil for a long time with the project. So she's now our first employee, and she runs the meeting, which takes a lot of work, as you can imagine, to do a meeting of that size. The meeting isn't huge in terms of delegate numbers, but it's reasonably big in scope, and there's a lot of logistics to it. It's a high-end meeting. So she does that. I have some friends help around the time of the meeting as well, which is really helpful. But the vast majority of it, yeah, it's me doing it at the moment.
Okay. So now we have seen this much amount of work, daily effort has been put on critical care reviews, and we are so blessed that this sort of thing is available to us. It was not when you started, but thankfully you started this. Very, very helpful. Now, again, my next question is for those who are listening. They want to get experience from your wisdom, which you have been so deeply involved in critical care updates and review. So the next question, which I would ask from a trainee point of view, whenever you come across a literature, suppose like 1 or 2 trials or 3 trials which you come across, so what do you think? What comes in your mind what is your strategy of reading them? Whether you go, what it's the first thing which you see in that, and then you step by step you read. So few tips for reading a trial or a paper journal.
Yeah, that's a great question. Where do you start? I mean, there needs to be biological plausibility.
Mm.
I mean, one thing I suppose to start with, certainly for the big trials, by the time the big trials are completed and published, they've been scrutinized for a decade.
Mm.
The big trials are enormous projects. So if
Mm.
you're reading something in JAMA, the trialists behind that, the group behind that, have been working on that probably for a decade. So you're unlikely to find an aha moment. Oh, they got that wrong. They've been thinking about this for a very, very long time. It will have gone through numerous iterations in the application for funding. It have been presented internally at multiple meetings. So by the time you're seeing the final product, a huge amount of clever people have thought about this and reviewed this and commented on it. So biological plausibility, it should be there, obviously. That's the first thing. In your own mind, is this reasonable? And of course it will be, otherwise they wouldn't have got funded to do the trial. They wouldn't have got ethical approval to do the trial. None of their co-investigators would have stumped up their time to do the trial. But the first thing you look at is this biologically plausible? Yes, it very much will be. The questions are all around the methods. It's the least interesting bit to clinicians typically, but it's all about the methods. Is the trial internally valid? Did they actually test what they said they were going to test? So if you're comparing A with B, that's relatively easy, but did they actually get A and B? So simple things like that. Did the variable of interest separate? So if you're doing a temperature trial, you're comparing 38 with 36. Well, did they actually hit 38 and they actually hit 36? If they both sat at 37 the whole way through, the trial's not internally valid. It hasn't actually tested. I mean, again, you've got to interpret maybe the trial isn't actually implementable in that they couldn't achieve those temperatures. But in terms of answering the question 38 versus 36, if neither arm reached those, then you haven't answered the question. So things like that. Is it biologically plausible, which it will be, and is the methodology adequate to answer the question? One of the big things is, in a way, the answer is less relevant. The answer is the answer. ask the question, the answer is the answer. We shouldn't be wedded to the answer. We all obviously want to see new beneficial interventions that we can use, new monitors, whatever it is. But scientifically, the answer is the answer. That's it. Yes, it works in as much as we can say in the limitations of the trial. No, it doesn't. Maybe it does, in which case iterate, go again, run the trial again. But we shouldn't be wedded to the answer. Fernando Zampieri from Sao Paulo is now in Canada, has a great line. I don't know if it's his line or he's borrowed it from somebody else. We need to be passionate about the question and not the answer. So when you read a paper, you need to focus on the methods. It's not the answer. Yeah, of course you have to know the answer, but it's all about the methods. Did they give the drug at the right dose at the right time, often enough? Did they achieve a plasma level? Is it internally valid? Did they recruit the right population, and so on and so forth? So what I would suggest to your readers who are interested in learning about how to critique trials is the methods. It's all about the methods. The biological plausibility is almost a given in order to set up an experiment, which a trial is, in order to set up the experiment to see what the answer is. But don't be wedded to the answer.
Thank you. This is something which everybody will be interested in, and hopefully soon, it's scheduled in March. We are going to have few lecture series for how to read a paper, and if you get time, we would love to have you there as an expert for some of the sessions. And regarding the trials, many of the people feel that the neutral trials or the negative trials have got not that much value, but I think they are important. What's your take on such trials that they've tried to do something, but the result was negative? It has no mortality benefit or something like that. So, or non-inferior trials sort of thing.
I mean, that's hugely useful. Say one is more expensive than the other, and they both give similar clinical outcomes. Who's going to say that's not a useful trial? That's incredibly useful information. One is an invasive procedure, the other isn't. They give similar clinical outcomes. That's enormously useful. But regardless, the question has been answered. If the question is sufficiently important to run the experiment, to run the trial in the first place, then the answer is the answer. We need to move away from, oh, it doesn't show benefit, the trial was of no use. Absolutely not. And I think most people don't think that way. You hear it occasionally, but the trial has provided the answer. That's great. We shouldn't be wedded to what the answer is. Well, of course, we want beneficial treatments and whatever, but identifying harm is every bit as important. So if we identify harmful procedures, then that's hugely important. So yeah, there's the neutral trial or the null trial. They're incredibly helpful. But again, it's move away from a fixation on the answer. It's the answer per se. It isn't, while it's the bit that impacts practice scientifically, it's the answer to the experiment that you've run.
Very, very, very important for those who are listening this. And regarding the trials, after the trials, there is a hierarchy of the literature format, which those who go through the literature, they review. They will read the review articles, they will read the meta-analysis, and then case report, case series. So obviously we know the hierarchy, but whenever you have time or you're short of time, which one you prefer to read in that limited period of time, and what importance do you give to those things whenever a review or meta-analysis comes across? Means I'm asking from a student point of view, that if I didn't get a time for this month, whether I should read a meta-analysis is something which I should not miss. At least if I'm not able reading all the reviews articles, but at least I should read this review meta-analysis or something sort of this, even if I'm not able to read the case series or previous trials.
I would suggest focusing on the big critical care trials. Sometimes meta-analyses include smaller trials, they include less robust trials, and all of that can get hidden within the context of the meta-analysis. There are very few meta-analyses of the big trials, because usually there are very few big trials in any one area, the big trials. So I would suggest focusing on the big trials, the ones that can impact practice and change practice. I mean, how many big meta-analyses have changed practice? Maybe some in cardiology. In terms of intensive care, there was a systematic review meta-analysis of the triumvirate of goal-directed therapy trials, Process, Promise, and Arise. Bling 3 came out with a systematic review and meta-analysis as well. So they're starting to happen more and more. We get them at our meeting now. It's almost the new normal, or it's becoming the new normal, where a major trial will be presented and a systematic review and meta-analysis of that field will also be presented at the same time. They're useful. They're relatively new. It's in the last kind of couple of years that these are starting to really become more prominent and happen more often. So that level of meta-analysis, absolutely, but the smaller ones, less so. If you're time limited, the big trials probably would be where I would go, are the big, most robust systematic reviews and meta-analyses. I mean, there's so much information out there. Where do you start? Place to start is probably the big trials. That's the place to start. Once you've got those, then you can expand more and go out further. But the big trials is a good place to start. The other place that's very interesting to read is the guidelines. I mean, the guidelines are syntheses of the evidence, again done in a very methodological fashion when done by the big groups, by the big institutions. They're a really good place to go as well. Guidelines are very useful, but the guidelines are based on the trial. Everything comes back to the trials. So you're going to start somewhere, start in the trials, the big systematic reviews and the guidelines.
So in continuation of this, what we discussed, that now AI has come in, which synthesizes the trial summary or review the trial summary, or gives a student or anyone who wants to have an idea about the trial, they give something sort of that. So how do you, what's your view on, you are seeing this for a longer time, how this AI has changed in understanding or reviewing the trials, and do you still think that one should be able to develop this skill of reviewing the trials by themselves, or the methodology part especially? What's your view on this AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI is a complete game changer. We're in a different world already in such a short space of time. And AI is just going to become more and more prominent and dominant, and it will do more and more. But as long as we have human clinicians, then the human clinicians need to have the knowledge. So yeah, by all means, people should be able to identify the big trials and should have an ability. You don't necessarily need to be able to write a thesis on it, but you need to have a basic ability to be able to critique a trial. And again, it comes back to simple things. Is it internally valid? Have they actually done what they said they were going to do? Simple things like that. You don't need huge training for that. Where AI is going to help is it's going to be able to synthesize large numbers of critiques in a very short space of time. It will then need, at this point in time, it will need human oversight to make sure that what it's put out is accurate, and then it gets released. So AI will do a lot of the time-consuming work. A human with knowledge in the area will overview it, and then hopefully it gets published. But at this point in time, AI shouldn't be an unedited AI output shouldn't be presented to the public. I think others might disagree. I think we need human oversight, but the point will probably come at some point where AI is sufficiently accurate and extensive that you'll be able to do that. But I'm not sure we're there at this point today.
So that's what I was asking, that as of now, if somebody is asking a AI regarding summarize or give me the critiques or these points, so what's a word of caution which you will advise to them?
I think AI has huge potential. I mean, there are companies that are building and have built clinical decision support systems. That's and they're there for a reason. I expect they're probably very accurate. I haven't really used them directly. But in terms of critiquing a trial, yeah, you can ask AI to critique a trial, and it depends on how good the AI is. If you're on a fairly basic plan, then you probably get a relatively superficial overview. If you have access to more advanced AI, you'll probably get a superb answer and very in-depth. So the individuals need to be aware of that, of the strengths and limits of the platform that they're using. And some are better than others. I mean, there's research grade AI is advertised. That's what they're designed to do. Others aren't. They're more superficial. So, but people need to know. I mean, while AI is a black box, people do need to be cognizant of their limitations as well, and be aware as to what they're using, and is it actually accurate or not, or is there a better one out there that they could use?
Thank you. Very nice, because this is my personal experience also. At times, AI also needs support of the human prompt while reviewing these things. Now, we all know that critical care reviews is a very, very, very helpful, I would say, authentic and reliable platform where we can find the resources. But during this your journey with your experience of these last 20 years, are there some other resources which the current generation or students should also look at if they want to review the articles or journals by themselves? Can you help them out with certain good resources for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there were lots started 15 years ago. There's not so many in terms of critical care. Yeah, the Bottom Line, which is a UK-based group who summarize trials. That's very useful for looking at trial summaries. In terms of clinical knowledge, the big one is Life in the Fast Lane, which is developed by Chris Nixon, a friend of mine from Melbourne. He helps run the meeting CCR Down Under. I mean, that is enormous in terms of clinical knowledge. How himself and Mike Cadogan, who is the co-founder with him, the amount of time they must have put into that is just staggering. So Life in the Fast Lane is one of the big beasts of this world, enormously popular around the world. And I suppose the other big one, Scott Weingart with MCRIT, the MCRIT podcast. Scott's been incredibly influential. It's interesting in terms, I mean, Life in the Fast Lane is still fully free. We're mostly free, and Scott is, I think, mostly not free now in terms of his podcast. He releases some that are open access, but I think mostly now he's had to bring it behind a paywall again just to keep going. So it reflects the challenges that are there. Josh Farkas works with him within that MCRIT project, and he does the internet book of critical care and lots of interesting blogs. There's so many people. I hate to kind of name pick just a few because it means I'll be leaving out others. But there's quite a number. I mean, we don't necessarily focus on the other independent groups that are producing content, but I'm sure your listeners, and of course yourself, doing your very, very valuable work in India. So there are lots of other independent bodies, which is great to see. It's great that the digital age has democratized not just access to knowledge, but also the ability of others to innovate and share science and investigate and critique and comment on science. So it's not just coming from the big institutions, but there's others able to do it as well. And it's great that people have taken up that opportunity and do this.
Wow. That was means, as you are seeing all those things, I can imagine how things were starting, and now so much of effort has been done, and Critical Care Review stands as one of the reliable platforms for anyone who wants to remain updated in critical care. So that was very insightful conversation with you, Dr. Rob. Before leaving, can we have a few words of advice for our listeners on the ICU channel by ESBICM for them those who are entering critical care or practicing critical care or wants to remain updated in critical care? Something which can remain in their heart or which they can take from you.
I think, I mean, I'm always hesitant to give advice. I mean, I can tell you what I do. I'm not sure I'm the person to tell other people what to do, but I'll tell you what I do and why I do it. I think we're lucky we've got a hugely prolific research community who provide the knowledge for us to give the best care we can to our patients and give them the best chance of survival and recovery. And what we do should be based on the latest available science, should be based on the best available evidence. If one of your loved ones went into hospital today, that's what you would want for them. You would want them to get the most up-to-date care possible. So for anybody starting, that's what I try and do. I try and provide the most up-to-date care that I can on a daily basis. How do I do that? By staying up to date. How do you stay up to date? That's a different matter. I wrote an article in Critical Care Science, which came out last week on that. There's various different means of doing it, but the main thing is that you do it, that you stay up to date. Whether you stick with your platform, which is superb, use a different platform. Of course, you've got to read the journals. There's no two ways about that. You need to read the primary evidence, and should build a lifetime habit of reading the primary evidence and the big trials. So that's, I think, what I would say. Stay up to date in whatever way you can, but stay up to date. Be an up-to-date clinician.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. It was so nice talking to you, and I think everybody who will listen this session for a long time to come, everybody will get benefited, and it will motivate them, it will boost them, it will put them with energy and confidence that remaining updated in critical care is not so difficult. You just, as you said, that it should become a habit, and once it becomes a habit, everything goes well. So thank you for sharing time, and hope to see you soon again on some other topic. Many thanks.
Anchor, thanks so much.
Thank you.